What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Graduated and Grown podcast. It's your host, Ariane McCullough, here with another episode. And I'm really, really excited for today's episode because we're talking about how adulting is a scam and I am a scammer. I never thought that when I graduated from college, I would be a scammer, but a few months have passed by, almost a year, and I realized, yeah, you know what, Ariane, you are a scammer and you deserve the title of a scammer. So, when we were teenagers, well, at least I can say when I was a teenager, I always said, oh my God, I can't wait until I'm an adult. Like, I can't wait until I can do things on my own time. I can do whatever I want. And now we're here and I kind of want to go back. I mean, I'm serious, but I'm also joking at the same time. I don't know if I'm more joking or if I'm more serious. Just because adulting requires a lot of work while being a teenager and younger, yeah, it's work, but it's not the same type of work. It's a lot of optional work. That's the crazy thing. So, when you're preparing to be an adult, which is usually either right after high school or right after college, you're usually expected to have your life figured out. Like, you're expected to know where you're going to go to school or where you're going to work. You're expected to know where you're going to live or what your career is going to be, etc. But do y'all not understand that the average person literally does not have their entire life figured out? Like, there was actually a point in time, I'm trying to remember when it was. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I felt so like unsatisfied, uneasy, almost depressed because I didn't really know what I wanted my life to look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, shoot, not even the next year. While like a lot of my friends or just people that I knew seemed to have literally everything figured out. But after I spoke to a lot of those people, I learned they didn't have anything figured out either. That is so, so crazy to me. And I think like that's another thing I really want to stress on this podcast. Like, yeah, some people do have their life figured out, but that is literally the minority. You, me, our cousins, our little brothers, we don't have life figured out, and that is okay. We just have to take those steps to kind of figure out life, and then we'll be good. You know what I mean? So, long story short, the way that adulting is presented literally makes it a scam. Everyone, specifically the adults, make it seem like, oh, the day you go out on your own, everything will fall into place. You'll find your purpose in life. You'll find your dream job. You'll find the money for this. You'll find the love of your life. You'll find the perfect home. But no, baby, no, that is not how it works. Especially adding on the fact that we're still in the middle of a pandemic that does not have an expiration date, at least for any time soon. So, I wanted to give you guys the definition of adulting. So, according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, it says adulting is the practice of behaving in a way characteristic of a responsible adult, especially the accomplishment of mundane but necessary tasks. Y'all felt that, right? When it said mundane but necessary tasks. And we're going to get into that a little later, such as things like paying for your insurance. That's mundane, but definitely a necessary task. Then, with a little bit more research, because your girl is a research scholar in my brain, I saw a Google image that gave two definitions, one for adulthood, one for adulting. So, this is the definition for adulthood: a scam presented to young adults. Oh, wait, no. A scam presented to young individuals to make them believe the facade that life automatically gets better once you become a full adult. Y'all, that's what I was talking about at the beginning of this episode. That's literally what adulthood is. And then the definition for adulting says a further scam. The fact that it says a further scam has me weak. Either a further scam presented in a modern way to seem like the transition into adulthood is only pleasurable and full of fun all the way. And some synonyms for adulting are scam, deceit, shocker. I agree. And the purpose of this episode is not to like complain about adulting. We're actually going to talk about the benefits of adulting, but I just thought those definitions were really, really, really funny. And I just think a big part of adulting is doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do it. Like, a big part of being an adult is the responsibilities. So, in today's episode, we're going to unpack, what were my adulting expectations prior to becoming an adult? What are the pros to adulting, the cons to adulting? Does social media have an effect on adulting. So, y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. I don't know about you, but I think adulting is hard. Figuring out your love life, finances, friendships, professional life, health, and how to make a freaking doctor's appointment on your own can be so overwhelming sometimes. So, welcome to Graduated and Grown, a podcast that's focused on helping you and me overcome the struggles of adulting. Let's have some fun yet honest conversations about life once you're graduated and grown. All right, y'all. So we're starting off this week's episode with the question of the week. This week's question is, Ariane, if you were randomly gifted with $1 million, that is one with 6 zeros behind and two commas, or three commas? Two commas. Yes, two commas. Anyway, Ariane, if you're randomly gifted with $1 million today, tax free, and had to use all the money in 12 months, what would you do with it? Oh, now. This is my dream for someone to randomly gift me with $1 million. Partially joking, but also very, very serious. Okay. One of the first things I think I would do is actually buy a new house for my family. I think that would just be nice. I don't know. I just think they deserve a new house. So I would definitely get them a nice house somewhere nearby where we like probably low key, probably in the same city that we live in right now. Cause it's like, we're already accustomed to living there. Like, what's the phrase? Why move the wheel when it's not broken? So yeah, probably just move into a new house. So I'll pay that off, right? What else? I would definitely pay my tithe. For those of you guys that don't know what tithe is, it's like, returning 10% of your money to God. So I would do that. So, okay, let's go back. So for the house for my family, let's just say like we don't need anything like crazy. Like we don't need a mansion. Like let's just get like a nice like $300,000 house. Boom. Tithe, 10% of $1 million is $100,000. Cool. I would probably, this is something I'm actually pretty passionate about. I'd probably start a scholarship fund for HBCU students with an initial like donation of $100,000. But my goal would be like every year after that to keep donating money. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to donate $100,000 every year because I don't make $1 million a year, but definitely like start that scholarship fund and keep it growing. So we're at $500,000. I think I will also give my mom like 100K for retirement. So like, when she retires, like she'll have that money to just do kind of what she wants. She could use that as a travel fund. She could use it as I don't know what she want to use it for, but I would definitely want to do that for her just as, a thank you for my life and for raising me. I'll probably want to invest and save about $150,000. So, some of that would go into, a high yield savings account. Some would go into like stocks or who knows, investment properties, stuff like that. So $150,000 for that to just like grow my portfolio. Okay, so we're at 300, 100, 100, 500, 600. We're at $750,000. So I have 250K more. I'd probably give 50K to my college alma mater. I would probably do $100,000 to a couple of different charities that I'm passionate about. Charities and nonprofits. I won't just limit it to charities. I think I would probably give my family about $50,000, just like my different family members, lighten their load a little bit, split it up. I think I would probably put $10,000 aside for vacation. And when I say vacation, I don't necessarily mean like one particular vacation, but it could just be like the beginning of a vacation fund. But best believe I will be going on vacation as soon as I got that money because your girl needs a luxurious break, okay? Then I have $40,000 left. I think I would just make a fund for random acts of kindness, So that could be, giving money to someone that I see on the street. That could be helping somebody clear for school, somebody pay their tuition, somebody, cover expenses for a dance class or a missionary trip. Just $40,000 aside for that. So I think that's what I would do with $1 million. So if anyone listening here would like to gift me with $1 million, I think my game plan is really, really good. So you can DM me on Instagram and I'll send you my bank account information. Okay, guys, let's get back on topic. So Again, today's episode is about how adulting is a scam and your girl Ariane is a scammer. And one of the things I wanted to talk about were my expectations for adulting. So, like I mentioned, like when I was a teenager, I was like, oh, I can't wait to be an adult. Even while I was in college, I was like, oh, I can't wait to graduate so I could do this, so I could do that. Now I'm here and I would like to go back to school partially. So, one thing I expected was for me to be able to do whatever I want. And I think that's actually a really valid expectation. Very valid. Like, that's the premise of adulting, like, you're on your own. Another expectation of mine, it's kind of funny actually looking back at this, that I'll be able to like party, have a good time on the weekends. And I think that kind of stems from different movies that I watched, growing up. Like, they would be going out on the weekends, having a good time, yada yada yada. And yes, that is definitely that's definitely possible. It's kind of hard with the pandemic right now. Another expectation that I had was having a great social life. Like, I thought my social life would be bomb. Like, I'd be just going out on trips, hanging out. I mean, that's kind of linked to partying on the weekends. I just thought like it would be so different. But the pandemic plays a huge role. But yeah. And then another expectation that I had is that I would be busy and have like a bunch of responsibilities. And the busy part partially comes from just who I am. I'm somebody, I always have 12 different things going on. That's how I kind of like to be. I don't necessarily mind it. Like, keeps me sane, it keeps me productive. And I knew like adulting would have other like things that I would be busy with, like work, or if I was in a relationship, so maintaining my relationship, having a dog, going to Pilates. Oh, another expectation that I had from my adulting experience would be that I would be super fit. Now that's actually hilarious. Like, if you guys know me, like if you're one of my friends, you know me and my fitness journey have a love-hate relationship. Like, I always talk about, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, I'm trying to eat healthier, but it's the execution that I struggle with. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But also, like, with the responsibilities part for my expectations, I just knew like with adulting, you had to pay bills. You had, different events that you were expected to be at. Just different stuff like that. So those are my adulting expectations. And I think a lot of my expectations were valid, but the pandemic and just other stuff just makes it not valid. Like, for example, with the pandemic, I'm sorry, baby girl, I can't party on the weekends. I mean, okay, let me say this. I very much so could go party on the weekends. Am I party on the weekends? No, I'll pass. I think I can wait a little bit longer to go to parties. But do I miss like weekend functions? Yes, so freaking much. You guys don't understand. Like, even though I wasn't like a party person in college, like whatsoever, I really loved weekends. Like meeting up with one friend, hanging out with my boyfriend, meeting up with a group of friends, game nights, all that different stuff. I literally lived for that. That the social part was the best part of college. And I hate that it's over now, but there's nothing I can do. Anyway, so let's move and let's talk about like the pros of adulting. There's so many pros because adulting is the best thing ever. This episode is sponsored by adulting.com. No, actually, there really are some really, really great parts of adulting. But the thing is, with a lot of pros of adulting, you could also look at them as cons. So, like, for example, one pro is you create your own schedule. Kind of. So, like, obviously, most adults are working, whether you're working part time, whether you're working full time. Like, most people have jobs. So, you can't necessarily make up your own schedule, but you kind of can, especially kind of like with COVID. Like, I'm working from home. So, I kind of have, like the freedom to say, oh, I'm going to do my lunch at 11, or I'm going to do my lunch at 3 p.m., different stuff like that. And I can like determine when I'm going to wake up. While in college and high school especially, you had a set, oh no, high school you had a very, very set schedule. College, like, you could skip a class here and there, do what you want to do, but it's different. when you're out of college. But of course, a lot of people are also adulting in college. So we'll loop y'all in there with that. Another pro of adulting is definitely like if you have a job or a sugar daddy, obviously, depending on your circumstances, you have money. Now, of course, that is very relative depending on your situation, depending on your loans, depending on your income, depending on your expensive, different things like that. Now, if you have a job or a sugar daddy or just parents that are very, very supportive with your money, with their money, you have money. You know what I mean? You have discretionary income. While in college, it was kind of hard. So, like for me, I worked a couple of jobs, like on campus jobs during college, but I didn't really get that much money. Like, it's gonna take way too much time for me to go and look for my old pay stubs. But I would say maybe I got maybe $300 to $400 a month just based off of my jobs. And then I would also get some money from my family, just to cover things like that. So when I got a car, that money, oh, it really went out the door like so fast, because with a car you have gas, with a car you're going to go out to eat, you're going to do more of this, and there's also the maintenance of a car. Oh, that is expensive. I remember senior year September, something went wrong, something happened with my car. I think the AC went out, and I went to school in Alabama. It's hot, it's humid. Running around with the windows down can only do so much. So eventually I had to like pay to get my car fixed. And I think it was about $300 to $500. So I was like, oh shoot. Like luckily I had some money from my summer job left over. Like I had a really good amount left over. But that cut into like my spring break fund, because a lot of that money was supposed to help pay for my cruise. But anyway, I digress. So that's a huge pro. Like having money is a huge pro. You can do what you want. You can go on vacations. You can get your lashes done. You can, date people. You can buy yourself clothes. And I think that is something that I really enjoyed about like this full-time adulting job that I've picked up. I'm able to actually do what I want to do within reason. My main focus right now is saving as much money as I can, but also treating myself, because girl, you deserve it. I tell myself that literally every time, even though sometimes I don't deserve it because I'm not really doing what I need to do. But yeah, so that's a huge, huge pro. Whether you're funding yourself, your parents are funding yourself, or your sugar daddy is coming through, it's definitely a huge, huge pro. Another pro I would say is, I mean, like you literally do what you want when you want. Kind of. I have to keep adding kind of in there. I think that's the biggest part of adulting. You're in charge of you, but that could also be a con. So if you don't want to go to your family's house for Thanksgiving, you just want to stay alone, you can do that. It's technically you could do that like while you're in high school, or technically you could do that while you're in college, but it's different. You're on somebody else's like money. But like as an adult, you don't have to do things you don't want to do, except for the things that you do have to do. See, it's a double-edged sword, because you think you have all this freedom, but in all honesty, you have a lot of freedom, but there are parameters. And I guess that's another expectation that I had, that I would have so much freedom. But when you work, when you have other responsibilities, you don't have as much freedom as you thought you would, because you know you have those responsibilities. Like I can't just take a 3-week vacation to Dubai, even though I may really want to, even though I may have the money to do so, because my job probably doesn't need me to be gone for 3 weeks, because then I'm going to be playing catch up for 3 weeks, and then my team won't be able to get things ran through me. It's just a lot. So yes, as adults you can do what you want, but there's definitely parameters. And I mean, those are, I think, are some of like the high level explanations of like what are the biggest pros of adulting. It just, the biggest thing I would say is just you can do what you want. You have the power over your life that you probably wanted your entire life. When your parents would ground you for doing things that you wanted to do and stuff like that, you wanted that power. And so when you become an adult, trust me, you'll get that power. Okay, now let's talk about the cons of adulting. And I wish this list wasn't so long because adulting is not terrible, but it is a scam. The biggest con, or the first con I'll say, of adulting is the fact that you have so many responsibilities. So you have bills. Every adult, unless your parents or your sugar daddy literally pays for everything, you have bills. You have a job, whether it's a part-time job, an internship, a full-time job, you have a job. You have like your personal maintenance, like you need to go to the doctor. You have to go to the dentist 2 times a year. I mean, you don't have to, but it's suggested that you go to the dentist 2 times a year. Sometimes, adults have kids, adults have families. Oh my God, we're not even going to talk about like, ooh, adulting with the family. That's a whole new level, y'all. This past, was it summer? Yeah, so my job, I was working like, probably 8:30 to 5, 8:30 to 5:30, blah blah blah. And I have to eat and I didn't want to spend all my summer money like going out to eat. So I would try to make meals, but I would be so freaking tired. And I was like, how can I do this for like a family of 4 or a family of 6 one day? And so I called my mom one day. I was like, "Mom, I gotta give it to you. You really were able to work every day, but still make sure that we had dinner every night. That's crazy. My kids will be learning how to cook at the age of 7, and we're going to find some healthy takeout places because I don't know if I could do this every day. It's hard." Another kind of adulting, I think, in my personal experience, but this could also be because of the pandemic, but I think it's harder to stay fit, like due to work, lack of motivation, and just other responsibilities. Or as you get older, your body starts to ache. You can't do the things that you were able to do when you were 16 or 20. So I think that's a huge thing. And that's something I'm trying to be better at this year. I'm not doing too well, but I'm doing better than I was. But just staying fit, like having a healthier life, like that's what I really want. I need to be healthier so I can live a long and happy life. Another kind of adulting is having surprise expenses and having to pay freaking taxes. The government, you kill me. So, like, surprise expenses are things like kind of like how I mentioned, like my car had to go in the shop all of a sudden because the AC was out. I've had other issues, where my car had to go in the shop all of a sudden. I mean, your house could burn. This is so extreme, but your house could burn down. You may have to have surgery. You may have to go in for like a root canal. Like a lot of different medical things tend to be like surprise expenses. And then taxes, like there's like two different levels to the taxes. So, if you are employed by, an employer, usually I think everyone's taxes are taken out of their checks. Versus if you're like an entrepreneur, self-employed, or a contractor, you have to like put money aside to pay for your taxes every year. And as you guys know, like I have an employer, so my taxes are taken out. So, like the money you thought you were making this year, your salary that you thought you were making, isn't the salary that's going into your bank account because your state government, the big government, they all need a cut of your money. So that's kind of annoying. And then also like just having to pay taxes on food, or if you owe the government money during tax season, you have to go and pay that. It's just a lot. And it's tiring and it's a lot to like try and understand. But we'll talk about that in another episode. Another con is that your life is literally in your hands. Again, this is a pro and a con. Like you are in charge of how your life goes, pretty much. Another con, having to make your own appointments, y'all. When I tell you I dread calling the dentist, calling the orthodontist, calling, my doctor and having to make an appointments, I just want to say, Mom, hey, can you make this appointment for me? Literally, I'm so tired of it. And then they ask all these different questions that I don't know the answer to. And I'm like, well, I know I'm 22, but can I call my mom so she can answer them? Because I don't know the answer to that. It's a lot that you're expected to know as an adult. And again, this is where the podcast is coming in handy because we're going to talk about things like that. Like, obviously, I can't tell you how to make your own appointment because I don't know what type of doctor, whatever you're going to. But, we're just going to try and discuss like different ways that we can overcome annoying, but like, again, important tasks that we have to do. Again, another con is having to actually this is funny. Having to actually understand things. So like a lot of the times in college, I would have something explained to me, like my insurance or just, I don't know, just stuff. I wouldn't know what the heck it is. Like, I would be like, okay, get a copy of it and say, Mom, hey, what does this mean? She would look over it and explain it to me. But as an adult, I can't hit my mom up every time I have a question about a paper or about a policy, yada, yada, yada. Now, to be honest, am I doing that right now? Oh, heck yes. Literally, when it was time for me to pick my insurance, I was like, Mom, okay, we need to have a conference so we can pick what insurance I'm gonna pick. And I know, like, I'm sure most people don't do this. I mean, I don't know. Like, my boyfriend, he didn't do it. He just chose everything himself. I guess with a little bit of my help. But I rely on my mom a lot. So I'm trying to like actually understand things like my insurance, like things to know, like when you're buying a car, but it's tiring and it's hard. I don't want to. Another con is college friendships become more distant. And I'm talking about in miles, but they also can potentially become more distant as in like the connection. So when we're talking about like miles distance, it's not likely the average person doesn't stay in their college town forever, right? The average person moves to a new city or they move back home and their friends do the same exact thing. So sometimes it's a little harder to maintain a friendship when, you're in California, but your best friend is in New York. There's a time difference. That's a crazy flight. Like that flight would probably be like 6 hours, I would think. And I'm sure they do have straight flights, but anyway, I digress. It's difficult when your college friendships are not as accessible as they were before. And then I think as a result of that, sometimes it's easier for your friendships to fade, in connection, just because you have something going on, your friend has something going on, you won't have as much time to FaceTime. You may not even feel like FaceTiming. It's harder, And like I said, people change in their 20s. That's one thing I really learned from Dr. Meg Jay's book, The Defining Decade, is that so many things change in your 20s and you're not going to be the same person that you were. Like when I turned 30, this 22-year-old Ariane is not going to be the same 30-year-old Ariane. So that's going to be very interesting to see. But like the distance, in friendships, potentially, it's not going to happen necessarily to all your friendships, but that is definitely a con of adulting. And then my last con that I could think of was definitely like the imposter syndrome creeps up on you. And I'm sure I can't say everybody has dealt with this, but I think it's definitely something that's common. I know I have dealt with the imposter syndrome in multiple environments and it's no fun. It's very tiring. It can be very detrimental and it's actually pretty lasting. Even when you move past it, it still literally creeps back up on you. And I think talking about imposter syndrome kind of brings us to like our next overarching topic about how social media affects adulting, like big time. So I definitely think that imposter syndrome and the effects of social media are related. And I guess I should probably tell you guys what imposter syndrome means because I don't think everyone knows what it actually means. Okay, so according to a website called verywellmind.com, imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. And that's huge, I think one thing that a lot of people experience on social media is comparing yourself, which I think is very related to imposter syndrome. Even though it's not involved in the imposter syndrome definition, comparing yourself to others and then not believing in yourself are very, very, very similar. And here's the thing, social media does one of two things. Either it makes you feel like you're not doing enough because you see person A living their best life, thriving, surviving, doing their thing, or it makes you feel like maybe you're doing more than person B, so you shouldn't share your accomplishments on your platform. You should keep them to yourself, so you don't get any negative backlash from others. And I think I definitely have experienced both, more so the first one than the second one. And it was actually recently. So basically, I thought, my life is so boring because I would keep seeing like a few different people's social medias. I'm like, oh, I would say, oh, I wish my life was like that. Ugh, so jealous, yada, yada, yada. And jealousy is not cute at all. It's detrimental. It can really break you down and have cause you to have some really, really bad thoughts. But, as time progressed, I started becoming more thankful and, what I do have and experiences that I have and will experience. And I think it's important, to recognize yourself feeling that, to properly deal with the emotions and then move on. So like now, I think every once in a while, it creeps up and it bothers me, but I think I'm definitely a lot more okay. I'm definitely really thankful for where I am in life. And I wish those other people the best. I will still be cheering them on from the sidelines, but I won't be saying, "Oh, so jealous, like give me their life." And you also have to remember that everybody only posts their perfect things on social media. Even your friends, they're not posting when their toenail falls off. They're not posting when their parents are arguing in the background. They're only posting some things. So I feel like adulting, really makes us compare ourselves and just not appreciate where we are in life. But I think it's so important that you do that. Okay, so after doing some more thinking, I feel like what I'm saying isn't directly tied to imposter syndrome. I think it's just more so focused on comparison, which I think is a key action in imposter syndrome, definitely. That's kind of what may start the imposter syndrome. And I definitely want to do an entire episode dedicated to my experience with imposter syndrome because it was a hard thing for me to work through, and the work is not finished. And I'm sure so many of you right now are going through the same exact thing. And in that episode, I'll probably also provide, some coping mechanisms and just ways to hype yourself up because you deserve it. But I'll go back to what I was saying earlier, just about social media's negative effects on adulting. I'm pretty sure almost everyone, not everyone, but I'll say a lot of people are comparing themselves and paying extra attention to what other people are doing. I mean, the whole reason why we're on social media is to see what other people are doing. So, you know, but I think there are healthy ways to compare yourself. Now, some of you guys might be like, Ariane, what? But I think there are. And those healthy ways don't involve putting yourself down or diminishing your accomplishments. Like, that's key. Rather, I think that involves you seeing the hustle of others and realizing, like, hey, you need to have that same exact grind in order for you to reach your goals too. Like, some people on social media are very, very motivating. I don't want to make it seem like social media is all bad because that's a lie. I personally love it and I don't plan on ever giving it up. I do want to cut back on my social media consumption, but again, that's a whole other topic. And I think there are a lot of positives that come from social media when it comes to adulting. It provides knowledge about so many topics for me, at least. Like, I've learned a lot about personal finance between Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Oh my God. I've learned a lot about renting my first apartment. I've learned about coping mechanisms for stress. I've learned about so many freaking like career opportunities through social media. So I feel like when it's used positively, social media has the power to positively change lives. But when used negatively, and not saying that you're the one that's using it negatively, it could really put you in a big time like slump, funky mood, meth feeling, whatever you want to call it. I just want to remind you guys that, adulting may be a scam and you and I may be scammers, but sometimes I think we need to be thankful for this journey. You know what I mean? Be thankful for what you have. Be thankful that you have the job. Be thankful that you're staying at home with your family. Be thankful that, you still have your friends from high school and college because a lot of people may not have that same, journey that you have. And I also want to encourage you guys, don't be so focused on reaching your goals that you don't enjoy your current life. You know what I mean? It's so tiring. I think it's great to have goals. I have many goals. I do what I can to achieve my goals. But I think sometimes I just need to unplug and just like enjoy the moment. Whether that is going to Krispy Kreme and getting some donuts and just relaxing, or going out of town for a weekend to see my friends. That's important. I shouldn't have to like argue with myself. Oh, should I stay here and do work or should I go on a vacation? Go on that vacation, relax. And I think reading the book, The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay, that will definitely help you out a lot. I got a lot of good advice from the book, specifically about like the beginning of adulting and just life in your 20s. And I'm actually thinking about doing an episode, like an entire episode, focused on what I learned from that book because I thought it was really, really good. And I think it definitely has a lot of gems that you'll learn from, whether you're similar to Dr. Meg J or whether, completely, completely. opposite. So I definitely want to encourage you guys, like, again, yes, adulting is a scam, but I think we can make the most out of the scam and, use it to our benefit. Like, adulting is probably like 60% responsibilities, 40% fun, or maybe 70% responsibilities. And the pandemic may change those numbers even more. But, we made it this far. Let's keep grinding and let's keep attacking the scam until the scam is done and over with. And, we're the scammers in charge. All right, guys. So I think that's enough about talking about how adulting is a scam and I am a scammer. I like to end off the episodes with the topic of the week where, I give my thoughts about some hot topic that's happening while recording the podcast. And I think one thing that's really hot right now on social media are these sexy TikTok challenges. So the only two that really come to mind are the Bust It challenge and the Silhouette challenge. If you haven't seen those, pause this podcast, go look at them. I wanted to talk about these because, like, deep down, I would love to do a challenge like that. But the problem is that is literally so not me. I would literally look so freaking dumb attempting to do either of those, especially the Bust It challenge. Oh my God. And so, since I realized that I look dumb doing it, I decided that I will not try. But if I do, it'll stay in my camera roll. I'll record it, and nobody, that includes my friends, my Finsta account, my boyfriend, none of them will be able to see it. It'll only be me. And I definitely think that these types of challenges are definitely like confidence boosters. Like, you got these people feeling good about themselves, and a lot of them do look really, really good. But just, Ariane, it's not your calling. And I've learned that and I've accepted it, that it's not my calling, and that I was meant to do something else other than the Bust It challenge and the Silhouette challenge. You know what? Maybe I will get in on a challenge one day, but I've always been worried about like what my employer is gonna say. Like, oh, that's not appropriate. Oh my God. That would be so freaking funny. If y'all ever see me do it, something is wrong. It's a call for help. Don't let me do these sexy TikTok challenges, please. All right, y'all. Well, that's the end of the Graduated and Grown podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you are a part of the scammer family and you are scamming adulthood every single day, be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars. Let me know what you guys think about the podcast overall in the comment section of your review. Be sure to follow the social media. And again, just keep pushing. Adulting is not easy, but we can definitely make it through. We may not have the most money, but I definitely think we can make it through. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Graduated and Grown podcast. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to the podcast so you can get a notification every single time a new episode is posted each week. Also, don't forget to follow our Instagram at Graduated and Grown so you can learn a little bit more about our guests, about our topics, get some resources, and provide some feedback and or episode ideas for the podcast. All right, y'all, it was your host, Ariane, and I'll talk with you all next week.